It was the kind of Saturday morning in Ibadan where the sun had no respect. It roasted the rooftops like suya and dared people to complain. In a quiet estate at Akobo, two sisters sat in the same living room and refused to speak to each other. They breathed the same air like enemies forced to share a cell. Ronke adjusted her lace wrapper and hissed louder than necessary. Tola, who was lying on the couch scrolling through TikTok, didn't flinch. She had mastered the art of ignoring her older sister's passive-aggressive sighs. "Your ear no day pain you?" Ronke finally snapped. "Habi, the devil don download sense, comet your head, again?" Tola sat up slowly, flipped her braids, and smiled. Coming from someone whose life revolves around people's hair, that's rich. That was how it always began, small jabs that escalated into shouting matches and doors slamming like thunder. Their hatred didn't start in one day. It brewed slowly over the years, like the bitter leaf Mama Ajayi used to soak behind the house. Ronke was the child who did everything right. She passed WAEC in one sitting, graduated top of her class in accounting, and dumped her certificate to build a booming salon called Ronke's Tresses. She was the pride of family WhatsApp groups. Tola? Tola was the child who fell pregnant at 17, the one who wore crop tops to church and posted dance videos on Instagram, asking people to like and share. She called herself an influencer, though Ronke liked to say influenza suited her better. They were oil and water, except oil and water occasionally minded their business. These two. They went to war daily. Things reached boiling point on a rainy Tuesday. Mema Ajayi had called a family meeting. Her voice, tired but firm, tried to bridge what years of rivalry had stretched. "You two will kill me before my time," she cried. "Even goats raised in the same shed have more love." She begged them to host a joint family Thanksgiving for their father's memorial. "Just once, I want peace," she pleaded. "Invite the whole family. Smile for one day, even if it's fake. Smile." They agreed, grudgingly. But secretly, they each had a plan to sabotage the other. On the day of the memorial, Tola showed up wearing a dress so tight, even Instagram would have issued a warning. Ronke almost dropped her meat pie. "You want to disgrace Daddy's spirit like this?" Ronke asked, eyes wide. Tola sipped her wine. "Daddy would have loved it. He always said I had his legs." Guests milled around, whispering, sensing tension in the air. Ronke gave her speech dripping with shade. "Some of us stayed and carried this family. Some ran around chasing ring lights and attention." Tola stood up without being called. "At least I didn't bleach my heart like my foundation." Everyone gasped. It should have ended there. But life doesn't follow scripts. Later that evening, Tola passed out in the kitchen. Everyone thought it was drama until they saw the blood on her dress. The pregnancy test Ronke found the next morning confirmed it. Tola was pregnant again. This time, she didn't even know who the father was. Ronke was the only one who didn't faint. Instead, she sighed, "I should have known. Drama is your oxygen." But something shifted that day. Ronke, against every bone in her body, took Tola in. The same woman who once said she wouldn't piss on her sister if she was on fire, now drove her to antenatal appointments. Tola cried one night, between contractions. "I didn't mean to be your enemy, Ronke. I just always felt like I was losing even at home." Ronke, wiping her tears with tissue from her salon, whispered, "You were never losing. You just refused to play on the same team." The baby came a boy. Tola named him Ayotunde, because joy returned, and in that hospital room, Ronke held the baby and finally smiled. "You gave birth to peace," she said. Tola laughed weakly. "He must have gotten that from you. I only give birth to chaos." They laughed. For once, the air between them wasn't thick with bitterness. But just when you think the story is over, 2 weeks later, a stranger showed up at Ronke's salon, asking for Tola. A man. With tattoos. And a strange birthmark, same one on the newborn's neck. "Tell her to call Dimaji. She knows why." Ronke's stomach dropped. She did know the name. It was the same man Tola had sworn she blocked forever. And just like that, the story twisted again. The smell of freshly steamed weave-on filled the air in Ronke's tresses. Customers chatted over dryers, hairstylists danced to a sake blasting through Bluetooth speakers, and Ronke, holding a customer's edge control like a scalpel, was about to snatch someone's hairline when the door opened. He stepped in slowly, a young man. Tall. Fine, but rough around the edges. Beard like he'd grown it in a mechanic's garage. Skin the color of roasted groundnut, and on the left side of his neck, bold and unmistakable, was a burn-like birthmark shaped like Nigeria without Cross River. Ronke blinked. Yes. The man glanced around. I'm looking for Tola. Ronke narrowed her eyes. Which Tola? He looked her straight in the face. Tola Ajayi. Tell her Dimaji is back. Her hand loosened. The edge control dropped on the floor with a dramatic clack. The entire salon paused like Nollywood sound effect paused. She hadn't heard that name in 2 years. Dimaji, the man Tola cried over the night she took too many pills. The one their mother called Omo Izu, child of confusion. The one who disappeared just when Tola thought she was pregnant the first time. Ronke crossed her arms. Why are you looking for her now? She has something that belongs to me, he said, calmly. Ronke almost spat. A hairbrush. He leaned closer. A child. That night, Ronke didn't sleep. She watched Tola bottle feed little Ayo Tunde while watching TikTok videos on mute, laughing quietly. You know Dimaji is back in Ibadan, Ronke finally said. Tola froze. The bottle dropped. Where did you see him? He came to the salon. Silence. Is the baby his? Ronke asked, watching Tola's face like a lie detector. Tola wiped her mouth slowly with the baby's towel. I don't know. Maybe. Ronke's scream was a whisper. You don't, Tola. You don't know? Are you Netflix or a baby factory? But Tola wasn't laughing. She looked at her son. I was drunk that night. After we fought. I went to the club. I saw Dimaji, and someone else. Ronke's jaw tightened. How many someone else's are we talking about? Just one, she said softly. I think. Ronke stood up, pacing. This is a paternity test waiting to embarrass us. 2 days later, Ronke gave Dimaji a time and address. She wanted to end it on her terms. He arrived in a keek. The man who once owned a Benz, time had humbled him. They met at a booker off Secretariat Road. Dimaji ordered a mala like someone who hadn't eaten in days. Ronke didn't touch her malt. I don't want trouble, he said between swallows. I just want to know if I have a son. Ronke watched him. And then what? Buy him Pampers with vibes and leftover stew? He wiped his mouth. I've changed. Ronke laughed. People like you don't change. You only rotate. Then he leaned forward and said something that made Ronke sit up. I have leukemia. Back home, Ronke watched Tola boil water and hum to the baby. She looked so normal. For once, Dimaji's dying, she said, almost like it was a joke. Tola turned slowly. What? He said he has leukemia. He wants a DNA test. If Ayo Tunde is his, he wants to leave something behind. He said he doesn't want to die knowing he failed twice. Tola's hands dropped the spoon into the pot. Her face folded. I didn't know. Well, Ronke shrugged. Now you do. The next day, they went to the clinic for the DNA test. They waited 3 hours in a room that smelled like antiseptic and sorrow. Dimaji came, this time in a borrowed shirt and borrowed hope. When he held Ayo Tunde for the first time, the baby didn't cry. Just stared at him with those big eyes like he knew something no one else did. Ronke turned her face away. Tola watched Dimaji quietly. You're sick. He nodded. The real kind. Why didn't you tell me back then? I didn't even know, he said. I ran because I was stupid. Not because I didn't love you. Ronke gagged. Please. Spare us. We're not in a Silverbird movie. 1 week later, the DNA results came. Positive. Dimaji cried. Tola cried. Ronke blinked hard and said her contact lens was paining her even though she wasn't wearing any. But the celebration was short-lived. That same night, a woman showed up at the gate. holding a toddler. "Where's Demaji?" she asked, her voice tired. "I heard he's here." Ronke opened the gate wider. The woman looked Tola straight in the eyes. "He's the father of my daughter too." Tola stepped back. The baby in her arms began to cry, and just like that, the real chaos started. For 5 full seconds, nobody spoke. The woman at the gate stared into Tola's soul. Her voice was flat, but her presence was nuclear. "I said, he's the father of my daughter too." The toddler tugged on her wrapper, sucking a pink lollipop. The silence screamed. Demaji didn't move. Tola took a step back like she'd seen a ghost. Ronke whispered, "Dear Lord, this is not a family. This is a paternity Olympics." They moved inside. The strange woman introduced herself as Fumi, a trader from Ishaying. Her voice had that tired tone of someone who had stopped hoping for kindness. She'd met Demaji 2 years ago at a party in Ibadan. They hooked up, talked daily for months, then he vanished. When she found out she was pregnant, he was already off the grid. "I thought I'd never see him again," she said. "But yesterday, I saw your salon flyer on Instagram. Same surname. I took a risk." Ronke blinked. "So Instagram is now doing divine revelations?" Fumi ignored the sarcasm. She handed over a small, crumpled photograph, Demaji holding her baby girl at a naming ceremony he never attended. Tola stared at Demaji, her voice shaking. "You told me I was your first real love." Demaji swallowed. "You were." Ronke scoffed. "Ah. If foolishness had a playlist, this guy would be track 1. Mema Ajayi arrived the next morning. She had been in Ijebu Ode for a women's conference. She walked in with her Ankara gallery still on, holding a Bible and a basket of oranges. She took one look at the scene, Tola crying, Ronke pacing, Fumi breastfeeding a child on their couch, Demaji looking like expired jollof rice, and said, "What did I miss?" Ronke threw her arms in the air. "Everything, Mummy. You left your house with 2 daughters and returned to find grandchildren from 2 wombs and 1 confused cucumber." Mema Ajayi dropped the basket. That afternoon, Fumi refused to leave. She had nowhere to go. Her rent had expired, and her landlady had locked her out. Ronke, reluctantly, allowed her and her daughter to stay in the boys' quarters. Tola? She became quiet. Too quiet. That dangerous kind of silence where people look calm but are mentally plotting documentaries. Late one night, she came into Ronke's room and sat at the foot of her bed. "I think I hate myself," she said softly. Ronke, startled, turned down the volume of her K-drama. Tola continued, "I always destroy everything. I'm not like you. You're smart. People respect you. I just trend online." Ronke sat beside her. "You know what the problem is?" she said. "You think love will save you. But it won't, sis. Wisdom will." They sat in silence for a long time. The K-drama characters argued in Korean while Ronke and Tola said nothing, letting the silence speak the words they couldn't. Meanwhile, Demaji was getting worse. His cheeks were hollowing, his eyes had sunken, and he coughed like a rusty gate. He couldn't afford treatment. He tried to sell his iPhone. It barely covered 1 test. Then one morning, he collapsed outside the gate. Ronke rushed him to the general hospital. Tola held his hand in the back seat, whispering, "Don't die. You don't get to run from this one." 3 days later, the doctor called the family in. Demaji needed a bone marrow donor urgently. His family was unreachable. Fumi didn't match. Ronke wasn't a match either. Tola, she matched. The night before the procedure, Tola stood by the hospital window, looking down at Ibadan's sleepy traffic. Her phone buzzed. Another influencer had tagged her in a skit challenge. She ignored it. She whispered to Ronke, "Do you think I'm doing the right thing?" Ronke looked up from her phone. "Saving a man who gave you emotional malaria? That one is above me. But maybe it's about saving yourself." Tola nodded. The surgery was successful. Demaji survived, but Tola didn't stay to celebrate. She left the hospital without a word and took her son to Fumi's place. Then she boarded a bus to Abeokuta without telling anyone. She left behind her phone, her ring light, and a note. Tell Ayotunde I needed to learn how to be his mother, not his mess. I'll come back when I know how. Ronke read the letter 3 times. She didn't cry, she just whispered. Even when she runs, she leaves drama behind. The house was too quiet. No loud TikTok audios. No sound of Tolar's ridiculous voiceovers. No spilled pap on the table. Just silence and baby Ayotunde's quiet cooing from the back room. Ronke stood in Tolar's room, staring at the note again. I'll come back when I know how to be his mother, not his mess. She chuckled bitterly. So she now thinks she's Ben Carson. Mama Ajayi, seated on the edge of the bed, shook her head slowly. She's hurting, Ronke. She's always been hurting. Even as a child. Ronke scoffed. Hurting people don't drop babies and disappear like vigilantes. Mama Ajayi sighed. You may not like how she left, but maybe she finally did something right. The next few days blurred into strange rhythms. Ronke resumed at the salon but couldn't concentrate. Ayotunde cried at odd hours. The boy missed his mother, even though he couldn't speak. Babies know when a bond is broken. One rainy afternoon, Ronke returned home to find Fumi bathing her daughter and trying to quiet Ayotunde at the same time. Fumi looked up, exhausted. Your nephew no day resto. He cry like person we chop promise and betrayal. Ronke rolled her eyes. Maybe he knows he's surrounded by confusion. But she took the baby from her, rocked him, and to her surprise, he calmed down. She looked into his big, innocent eyes and whispered, your mother better not be out there auditioning for one nonsense reality show. Meanwhile in Abeokuta, Tola had taken refuge in an old guest room owned by her cousin Yuande, a freelance makeup artist with bad taste in men and worse taste in stew. Yuande's room was small, full of glitter, mannequin heads, and unpaid bills. But it was safe. You day hide like EFCC day find you, Yuande said one night, eating indomie off her lap. Tola, sitting on the bed in oversized pajamas, stared at her phone, the one she wasn't supposed to have but secretly bought in Abeokuta. I'm not hiding, she said. I'm becoming. Yuande squinted. Becoming what? A ghost mother? Tola sighed. I needed space. I love my son. But I didn't even know who I was anymore. I just reacted to life. I've never been in control. Yuande shook her head. Babe, nobody has it figured out. The difference is some of us fight inside the storm. Others abandon ship. That one stung. Back in Ibadan, Dimaji had begun to improve slowly. His color returned. His jokes returned too. Ronke visited him occasionally, usually to drop baby supplies or insult him for sport. One day, she entered his hospital room and found him sketching with a pencil. She paused. Are you drawing? He turned the pad. It was a portrait of Ayotunde. Ronke blinked. That's surprisingly good. Dimaji smiled, a little embarrassed. I used to draw when I was younger. Stopped when life started drawing me instead. She tried not to smile. Wow. Look at you. Talented, useless and still broke. He laughed. You're impossible. She paused. Then, softly, Tolar's not coming back yet. He looked down. I know. I just hope. I didn't ruin her. One afternoon, as Ronke closed the salon, a young woman walked up to her, slim, polished, wore fitted jeans and an oversized black shirt. A slight gap between her teeth, she smiled. Hi. I'm Ngozi. I'm looking for Dimaji. Ronke frowned. Excuse me? Ngozi nodded. He told me he was sick. I came to check on him. Ronke blinked. Who are you to him? Ngozi smiled. His fiancé. Ronke dropped her car keys. Later that night, the compound echoed with Ronke's shouting, Fiancé? This man day play season film with everybody's womb. Mima Ajayi clutched her wrapper. Are you sure she's not from a church he used to attend? Ronke threw her hands up. She said she met him before he got sick. Mummy, this is not church, it's a love polygon. Fumi, from the kitchen, said calmly. At this point, I think Demaji needs a reality show. Even baby Ayotunde giggled in his sleep, like he knew his father was about to trend for the wrong reasons. The next day, Ronke drove to the hospital and burst into Demaji's ward. He was drawing again. This time, a sketch of a woman holding two babies. Who is Ngozi? She barked. He looked up, startled. What? Fiancé. Light-skinned. Gap teeth. Shows up smelling like coconut oil and betrayal. Demaji's face froze. Ronke. I didn't want you to know that part. Ronke nearly slapped him with the sketchpad. You're lucky you're dying slowly. If you were healthy, I would have used you to wash the compound. Later that night, Ronke found herself laughing with Fumi over hot puff-puff and cold zobo. Just two single mothers trying to make sense of the madness they accidentally shared. You now see why I moved on? Fumi said. Ronke smirked. Moved on to where? You still let him hold your daughter 2 days ago. Fumi laughed. Okay, true. But only for 10 seconds. They laughed till their sides hurt. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, Ronke felt something strange, not rage, not frustration, but something like sisterhood. Ronke never liked silence. It reminded her too much of things left unsaid, like apologies that never came, or mothers who prayed instead of talking. But these days, the house was filled with it. Just the occasional gurgle from Ayotunde, the soft hiss of the boiling kettle, and the never-ending sound of her own thoughts. She hadn't heard from Tola in weeks. Mama Ajayi tried not to show it, but she had started staring into space more often, especially when Ayotunde smiled. The same crooked smile his mother had when she lied about finishing her jam form. Ronke pretended not to care, but she did. At the hospital, Demaji's recovery was progressing fast, too fast. The doctor said the new medication was working like a miracle. But Ronke didn't trust miracles anymore. Every time things got too quiet, something crashed. Demaji was up and walking around, cracking jokes with the nurses, sketching baby cartoons, and trying to prove he was a changed man. Ronke, he said one afternoon as she dropped off baby supplies, do you ever think we could have worked? She paused at the door. We? No. Maybe as co-workers in a struggling company. But lovers? God forbid bad thing. He laughed. Fair. She turned back, eyes serious. Don't ruin Fumi again. Or Ngozi. Or yourself. He nodded. I'm trying. Meanwhile, in Abeokuta, Tola had taken a job as a receptionist at a small hotel. Nothing fancy, just a fan that squeaked and guests that lied about being cousins. At night, she typed notes into her phoned letters to Ayotunde. Today I helped a guest find his lost toothbrush. It made me think of your tiny hands. I miss them more than air. I saw a woman with a baby at the market. She looked tired, but proud. I hope one day I can look like that too. You and Day saw the messages once and didn't say a word. She just hugged Tola from behind and whispered, You Day try, babe. Don't let shame fool you. Then came the phone call. It was Ronke. Tola answered, heart racing. Where are you? Tola hesitated. Safe. Ronke's voice cracked slightly. Mummy's sick. Real sick. Her BP shot up. The doctor said we caught it just in time. Tola froze. I thought you should know, Ronke added. Click. That was all she said. Tola didn't sleep that night. She stared at the ceiling fan, thinking of all the times her mother shouted, scolded, or prayed for her like an unfinished project. But still, Mama had never let her starve. Never missed a visiting day in school. And when Ayotunde was born, she was the one who named him. Tola packed her bag. 2 days later, she stood at the gate. She didn't knock, she just stood there. Ronke came out, baby on her hip. They locked eyes. You came back, Ronke said. I came home, Tola replied. Ronke stepped aside. No dramatic music. No hugs. No screaming. Just two sisters, tired but still standing. Inside, Mama Ajayi sat on her favorite chair, wrapped in her white shawl, sipping hot agbo. Her face lit up the moment she saw her daughter. My daughter. She whispered. Tola rushed in, knelt beside her, and broke into tears. I'm sorry, Mummy. I ran because I didn't know how to stay. Mama held her cheek. You didn't fail. You just lost your way. But now you've returned. And that's what matters. Later that night, Ronke cooked jollof rice. Tola fed Ayo Tunde. Fumi braided her daughter's hair in the veranda. And for the first time in forever, laughter came back into the house, but the peace didn't last, because at 11:43 p.m., a text message buzzed on Ronke's phone from an unknown number. You think this is over? There are things Demaji didn't tell you. Call me before it's too late. Attached was a blurry photo of Demaji at a police station, handcuffed. The house was dark except for Ronke's room. She sat on the bed, back against the wall, the blue light of her phone casting shadows across her face. She read the message again, and then stared at the blurry photo of Demaji, handcuffed at a police station. She didn't sleep. By morning, her mind was already made up. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. Not her mother. Not Tola. Not even Fumi. She just took her bag, whispered a quiet prayer, and drove out of the compound with her mind racing like it was trying to outrun something. She arrived at Bodija police station, asked for Officer Danlami, and was led to the back. And there he was, Demaji, not sketching. Not smiling. Just sitting on a wooden bench in the holding cell, head bowed like a confession. She stood outside the bars. He looked up. His eyes were heavy. You weren't supposed to see this, he said quietly. She folded her arms. Yet here we are. The charges were serious: fraud, identity theft, defrauding a woman in Akure of over 1.2 million naira. It wasn't just about women and babies. Demaji had another life, one Ronke never knew about. A life of scams and fake accounts. Of running away just before he got caught. The sickness. Real. The stories. Real. But so was the con. You used Tola, Ronke said, voice shaking. You used me. You even used your illness as a prop. I didn't mean for it to go that far, he said. I was desperate. I got in deep. By the time I tried to stop, I didn't know how. She laughed, bitterly. You're a walking headline, Demaji. Father of two, fraud of many. He looked up at her with bloodshot eyes. I'm sorry. Ronke stared at him. Then she turned and walked away. Back home, she didn't speak about it. Not yet. That evening, Tola was feeding Ayo Tunde mashed beans. Mema Ajayi sat in the corner praying under her breath, as she always did when peace felt too perfect. Ronke entered and said, "We need to talk." She told them everything, the charges, the lies, the second name Demaji used in Akure, the woman who filed the complaint, who had a child that looked just like Ayo Tunde. Tola's spoon dropped. You're saying Ayo Tunde may not be his only son? Ronke looked at her sister, her voice quiet. I'm saying there might be another boy. 2 months older. The room spun. That night, Tola sat on the balcony, eyes puffy. Fumi came and sat beside her with a bottle of Fanta and groundnuts. I used to think you were soft, Fumi said. Now I think you're steel pretending to be velvet. Tola wiped her nose. I thought I was saving him. Turns out I was just fueling the car that hit me. Fumi passed her the drink. At least now, you can stop pretending it's love. A week later, Ronke and Tola visited the station together. They didn't come to forgive, they came to release themselves. You're not our shame, Ronke told Demaji. You're just part of our story. Tola looked him in the eye. And stories change. She placed a printed photo of Ayo Tunde on the table and stood up. That's the last picture you'll see of him, she said. Be grateful. They left. Months passed. Tola started a small baby clothes line called Ayo Tunde's Wraps, selling handmade wrappers, bibs, and onases. She sold out her first stock in a month. Ronke expanded her salon, now called Sisterlock's Grace, and added a children's hair section named Fumi's Corner. Mema Ajayi got better. Ayo Tunde took his first steps in the living room, between both of them. He said his first word at 11 months. It wasn't mama. It was up. Ronke said it was because the boy knew where they were going next. Evening light spills into the compound. Tola, Ronke, Fumi, and Mama Ajayi sit outside, peeling yam, baby Io Tunde wobbling around in oversized slippers. Ronke laughs at something Tola says and shakes her head. You know what I've learned? She says. Blood might be bitter. Tola looks up, but it still runs deep. They all nod, and in the fading light, 4 women, sisters by blood, betrayal, pain, and growth sit together, not perfect. Not fixed, but free.